Hey friends, this is Mike again. Today's podcast is on the subject of prayer. A little bit different from some earlier podcasts where I talked about, how God answers our prayer. This one is caused by just listening to another one of Lon Solomon's broadcasts about do our prayers even get to God? And it really got me thinking. Here we go. Hello again, friends and fellow truth seekers. Mike Nicholas here with another episode of the Soul Unleashed podcast, where it's my goal to help you with questions you might have regarding the awakening of your soul, and particularly to help other left brain types, like I think I am, ask the right questions in our search for a deeper meaning to life. Ultimately, I want to help you unleash your soul from limiting beliefs and smothering paradigms. So today's subject was caused by another one of Lon Solomon's Not a Sermon, Just a Thought broadcasts. I didn't, cut this one and play it on this podcast because, well, for two reasons. One is I don't want to have a copyright problem. The other one is I couldn't find it. Last time I did this, I was able to quickly find the version that he did and what he talked about. In this case, he was talking, and I'm just going to paraphrase it here. He was talking about prayer and our prayers going to God. And he said, if you're not Christian, paraphrasing, if you're not Christian, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, if you've not accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior, God does not hear your prayer. And he said it so matter-of-factly that I thought, wait a second. That just does not seem the way things are to me. And this whole Soul Unleashed thing and the Soul Awakening thing is all about questioning things that I would have just taken for granted. Now, if I'd heard that a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, okay, if you're not Christian, God doesn't hear your prayers. I get that. I'm Christian, so, yay me. But that, I don't think is how, it can't work that way. It can't work that way. Now, Lon's quoting the Bible, right? And he gives a number of resources or quotes in the Bible about, where it says things like, you have to, come to me, I'm the only way through me, Jesus Christ. And I suppose if you were to use the Bible as the only source of what you think or what you believe, then, maybe that all makes sense. I went and looked for some other things too that were quotes that are out there. And there's plenty of things on the internet. All you have to do is Google, does God hear our prayer, or does God hear our prayer if we're non-Christian? And there's plenty of people willing to offer their opinion about whether or not God hears your prayer. Most of them are, no, he does not hear your prayers if you have not accepted Jesus Christ. And, not only do I know plenty of people who aren't Christians that pray and are very devout, appear to me anyway, to be holy people, but, there's whole religions out there that don't accept Jesus Christ as their Savior. I'm thinking of Judaism and, Islam and many, many more that pray to some type of deity. I like to believe it's all the same God. We all pray to the same God. We call him God. I call him God. But, to the Jews, I think they call him Jehovah, or they've got other names for him or her, whatever that spirit is. But I'm no longer tied to the vision of a guy with a long white beard sitting on a throne and judging me and putting out his hand and saying, no, you can't pray to me, if you're not Christian. I just cannot believe that that's the case. And in Judaism, they have a whole wall dedicated to prayer in Jerusalem. I've been there a couple times. The wall in Jerusalem where all the Jews pray, and Christians, anybody can pray there. But it's been, quite an experience to go there and pray. And there's just a sense of, I don't know, I call it holiness, but a sense of something special about being in that spot, and that you're able to communicate with something larger than yourself, I suppose is how I'd put it. So I just can't accept right now that the only way to have spirit, I'm going to say spirit, not God, because I don't want to use the term him, even though if you listen to Lon and a bunch of other people, God is always him. If he accepts or rejects your prayers. In that thing that I'm quoting to, or I'm thinking about that Lon said, he said something in there too, which was, God's got a lot going on basically, but he will listen to you. He will pay attention to you if you've accepted Jesus Christ. And if you have not, then he He's not interested. And that just does not jive for me anymore. There are a couple of resources that I can tell you to read if you are interested. And this is coming from other people who are, I guess, Christian ministers who are saying that God clearly says that he does not hear the prayer of sinners. And they use the quote from Psalms 66, verse 18. If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear. So that's something that to them says that the God will not hear you if you're a sinner. And there's some other quotes which basically say that he only hears the righteous. Psalm 34, verse 15 to 18. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. And I suppose that's supposed to mean that God's face is against you if you're a sinner. So quite clearly, according to these guys, God does not answer the prayer of sinners. And then the question is, well, are non-Christians sinners? And according to, again, these quotes I'm looking at, yes, the Bible tells us that we've all sinned. So yes, non-Christians are sinners, Christians are sinners, whatever. We've all sinned, but inasmuch as non-Christians have not obtained forgiveness of sin through Jesus Christ, then they're still sinners, and therefore God can't hear them. So that's the somewhat tortuous logic that they use to arrive at that conclusion. I'm afraid that I'm of the opinion that the Bible can be used to justify everything from God not hearing the prayers of Christians to being a devout vegetarian or something. It can be used. There's quotes for everything, and Old Testament, New Testament. It's just used all the time to support what people think. I'm taking a class right now as part of this podcast, and I'm being a little bit more personal here right now, but I wanted to better understand my faith and better understand why I'm having these questions, and not simply to reject it outright. In the guys that wrote the Bible, and I think mostly it was men. I know that there's a whole thing out there, a controversy about Mary Magdalene and her books being rejected or whatever. But most of the books have been written by men. And they've got a number of strikes against them right away by people who dismiss the Bible out of hand. One is that they were men, right? So the whole patriarchy thing, that's frowned upon or looked at with suspicion. The second thing is they're old men. so I'm starting to feel a little bit more relatable to them. They're old men, and therefore they're even more suspicious. And then they lived a long time ago, right? But the course that I'm taking, the course is provided by a Catholic organization. And I thought, well, if I'm going to talk about this and share with you what I'm thinking, I want it to come from a perspective of at least I kind of know what I'm talking about. Not that I just think the Bible is baloney, or that I don't think that, but or that I just think that it was all put together, it was a mistake, or that things were misinterpreted. Because those opinions are held by a lot of people that I've met and talked to. The Bible was written a long time ago. It's really old, but all those patriarch guys got together and they shut out the real books of the Bible, and they shut out the women, and it's all a bunch of hooey, and it was been written and rewritten 1,000 times, and doesn't say now what Jesus actually said, and the words have all been misinterpreted, and on and on and on and on. So I wanted to know how the heck the Bible was put together and where the writings came from. And I've only had 2 classes so far. This thing goes on for like 30 classes. But as I learn, and I've already learned a couple cool things that I will share eventually on this podcast, not necessarily bad or good. It's just interesting. I didn't know some of the ways that when I say the church, at that time the only church was the Catholic Church. So some of the ways that the church verified things and the trouble they went through to do it, assuming it's true what I'm being taught, were pretty impressive. But it still hasn't changed my opinion that the Bible can be used by pretty much anybody to support anything. And back to where we all started from a few minutes ago is I simply do not accept right now that if you're not Christian, that God does not hear your prayers. You can't even approach God. And to me now, God is the universe. God is this all-seeing, all-knowing, I am presence, way too way so far beyond us in terms of not only frequency, of course, but in terms of knowledge and being, that to make up stories that he likes you, but he doesn't like me. He likes that guy because he's Christian, but doesn't like that guy because he's Jewish. Just seems so trivial and silly that I just don't accept that. That's the story that we've told ourselves for centuries. That's the story that many men. I have great respect for Lon Solomon, but listen to a lot of his sermons, and I've done that on purpose so that I kind of know what I'm talking about. He obviously believes that in that story, and more power to him. I'm just not there with him. But that's where I am for this week, and I'll keep you updated as I make this journey into the Fathers of the Church, is what it's called. Anyway, if you'd like to I'll let you know what's happening with further podcasts. I have a special guest that's coming this week. Her name is Lulu Lee, and I'll just tease you right now that she's a very interesting young lady. She does something that I'd never seen before in terms of how she shares her gifts. Her gifts are primarily involved around healing and being an empath and using the law of attraction and those kind of things. But she does it tied into her profession as a professional makeup artist. She's worked on famous people, movies, television shows, whatever. So she knows all kinds of people, but it's just a very interesting interview. That's coming up on Thursday. Lulu Lee. Thanks again for listening. Be really happy if you had the time to make the time to leave a review, and look forward to talking to you next week. Bye-bye.